We love our sponsors like Foothill Transit, who make the show possible. Now we're on to the Morning Buzz. We are going to be talking a little bit about Trump. When do we not talk about Trump?
Yeah,
in the Morning Buzz.
about Trump.
And really, he's brought up the new issue of the Supreme Court justice, his ideas with that, the abortion, and so those all play into the possibility with the abortion. The rules on abortion
knows how to spark up some controversy.
He does.
He does.
So let's talk about that. John Frykenberg joins us today. Thank you very much for being on set with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because Donald Trump started as pro-choice, and he's ending up as pro-life. Now, with some qualifications, if the life of the mother is involved, there are reasons why a woman might have abortion, but it really boils down to the basic facts of your feelings about sanctity of life, and how much do you value life, and when do you think life begins? Because there's a lot of very disturbing facts about abortion out there today.
So in the beginning, he was pro-life? What made him change?
In the beginning, he was pro-choice, and he's
Okay.
become pro-life as he's gone along, and he says that he's done that as a result of his experience and his observations. Because he has a close friend, the story he tells, that was going to have, they were going to abort their baby, and they did not in the end, and that friend has, a baby has turned out to be a very fine young man who has possibilities of the whole world in front of him. So who would eliminate that possibility?
Did they
That's the
think
bottom line.
that their son was going to be handicapped, or they weren't ready to have a child, or what was
I'm not
their
sure what
rationale?
all of the reasons were, but in terms of the outcome of that, and Donald Trump thinking about that, I don't know how much thinking he did about that before he was really asked and put on the spot. But it made him grapple with that question, perhaps for the first time in his life. And he said, everybody should have opportunity for a chance at a good life and successful life.
So this was something that was over a period of time that he was considering. It wasn't
I believe
just
so.
during the election.
I believe so, although he had to articulate that during this electoral process. And I don't know that he'd ever really thought it out before, but he's come to, I believe, the right conclusion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so along with that, we have the Supreme Court justices, and with the changes in that, the potential for changing the law around Roe v. Wade. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that probably Roe v. Wade needs to be changed. You've got 7 or 8 states, the most recent of which is Oklahoma today, that wants to eliminate abortion, or at least qualify it, as I've discussed a few minutes ago, to very limited circumstances, like the mother's life being at risk, at stake,
right,
in this case. And there are a lot of reasons for that, because if you get into the nitty-gritty of the abortion business, in Planned Parenthood, of course, the law outlaws use of public funds for abortions. So what they do is they take our public money and they simply subcontract out abortions. But the disturbing thing about that is, of course, in the last 50 years, 50 million babies have been aborted. And this was all started, as in Planned Parenthood, reflects back to Margaret Sanger, who was a eugenicist in chief, in which the pseudoscience of eugenics in this country, they wanted to determine that the feeble-minded and the less desirables in our society should be sterilized, and we could get rid of them.
But they do offer health services to women. And so
they do.
forth.
I'm not saying that they don't do some good, but when you think about the downside of that, including the selling of baby parts, which has not been established in court simply because it's been blocked so far, but it will not be blocked forever. The facts are pretty clearly out there, and it's very, very disturbing. In fact, it's so disturbing that in the eugenics movement in this country, you had 20 states at one point in time who were signing on to this pseudoscience, of which, in terms of those sterilizations, California was #1. And if you reflect back to somebody like Adolf Hitler, where did he get his ideas on race from? actually got them from the United States of America. Extremely disturbing.
Well, back to pro-life and the abortion activists. Shouldn't a woman have a right to do what they want with their own body?
All right, my reply to that is, of course she should have a right to do what she wants with her own body, but we've got another life involved here, and I'm talking about the life of the child. You know, what rights does an unborn baby have? You know, for those who come from a Christian tradition, you know, can reflect very clearly that that within Holy Scripture it indicates that you were beautifully and marvelously formed in the womb, indicating that people are made in the image of God. Well, if you believe that and you're a Christian, it's pretty hard to say, well, how do we just eliminate a baby because we don't want a baby?
And I think there are three situations that Trump is even pointing out to say that it's okay to have an abortion.
He is.
And
Rape,
so is it
incest,
okay?
and for the life of the mother. And those are
only
generally the three qualifying cases in most of these states that are just now, instituting laws to if not to ban abortion, at least to restrict and to make sure that the doctors are performing abortions, you know, have medical rights and hospital rights to do that, which I think is very reasonable.
Well, and I think in more of the conservative viewpoints of pro-life, even in those conditions, those are not acceptable. How do you feel about that?
I think that perhaps in my own feelings are changing about this. I think certainly when it comes, as an example that I've used, the life of the mother involved, a choice has to be made. And very often that choice boils down to the right of the woman to do what she wants with her own body, and her family in consulting with them. Yeah. And perhaps from counselors or clergy or somebody else to say, you know, the probability is that either you're going to die or your baby is going to die under these circumstances.
John Frykenberg, thank you so much for being on the Morning Buzz with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Up next, a local student who works on fixing computers, something that we all need.
Exactly. So Jorge Lopez will be on with us to share his story from homelessness to hope.